Good afternoon. It's Lindsay. It's October 30th, 2024. It's Wednesday. And I just have to document something that happened earlier. I tell you, I have never been so angered in my life. I swear to God, I really lost my temper because of the fact that I was being manipulated by a narcissist. This person I've talked about. I was here at my house. First of all, I had a really bad day at the gym. More harassment and stalking by certain people doing their monitoring of myself, which of course causes me a lot of added anxiety and stress. You know, because of all that harassment and covert harassment stuff, stalking that they do to me. Certain people, mostly black people, mostly, because I can tell that these people, the way they, there's one man who was there again today doing his same little thing, monitoring me, and as soon as I got off the treadmill, there he was doing something on his phone. Like, they just make it really obvious, and then that woman who, and it's, of course, since I've talked about them now, it's like they're really amping up the harassment because I've already called them out for it, and they know that I've talked about them, and I know who they are, and so they know that I know who they are, so they're really fucking with me more, or gaslighting me more, because I keep on calling them out, or making videos about it, that is to say. I don't say anything to them directly at the gym because I don't even know them by name, but they know that I know, and so they know that it makes me angry, and so they keep on provoking me into acting out and getting angry because of their surveillance and harassment. It's a form of harassment and bullying, and it's like what children would do, like bullies would do in a playground. If you imagine, adults adults acting like children. That's what they're doing. They're provoking me into reacting to their silly shit. And when you ignore them, they get mad and they act out and they start making noises and doing things to try to get you to react to what they're doing. And it's like, so this is ongoing stuff that black people have been targeting me. And yes, it is black people, African Americans, Negroes, whatever. They call themselves, I mean, look, I'm sorry, I'm just saying blacks, okay? Whatever. I don't know why this has been happening to me for so many years. The fact that, like, I get targeted so much by this particular ethnic group or race of people. But I'm not making this stuff up. And yes, I do believe that it has something to do with that Bobby White, that fucking jackass Bobby White of white security, and his wife, because ever since I got involved with that back in 2009, I think it was, something like that, I believe. It's just been a constant thing in my life with certain patterns of abuse or harassment perpetrated against myself by African American people or blacks, who usually, seems to me that they usually like work in the security guard arena, or something involving the government or security officers, or whatever, and it's always the same fucking thing. And there's no reason why I would have any reason as to fabricate this, when in fact it happens to me all the time. And it's like I've had other security guard people follow me around and whatnot in the stores and parking lots, but they don't really have an effect on me like the black ones do. Like they seem to be more well-mannered or whatever. They don't do the same kind of, they don't have that kind of effect on me that these blacks do. And for whatever fucking reason, I get really triggered by the black security guards because of all the fucking trauma that I have gone throughout my life, the nightmares that man caused me. I still have nightmares about it. I still have anger issues about it because he fucked me over and lied to me and exploited me financially and made a fucking fool out of me. And by the way, when this house next door where they're doing fucking drug dealing for a good 2 years or 2.5, 3 years the whole time I've been living here, the motherfucker was an ex-con, pardon me, but he's like black, half Mexican, whatever, looks like a big intimidating gorilla, okay? He looks like a fucking gorilla who would attack somebody. That's how he's very, he looks like a bully who would beat you up and kill you. If that's what a rapist, that's what he looks like. Okay, he's got that kind of look about him that's intimidating. And so he would do all that shit for years at the house with all the drug dealing shit that was going on there and all the vagrants coming and going and the crap that was going on there. And often I would see a uniformed security guard there or something, like some kind of a fucking security guard. Some black man would often be at that house next door, which now seems to be vacant or unoccupied. He would be there a lot. I'd see him, I'd notice him, some fucking black security guard in a uniform on the steps of that house, just hanging out and smoking and laughing. Okay, so look, I don't give a shit what these people do. I know that everybody's got a social life or everybody's got a life beyond what they do for a living, whether it be drug dealing, security guard, whatever the fuck it is they do. Everybody's got their own life, okay? Maybe they drink, they party. I don't know, and I do not care. I just don't want to get involved because I stay to myself. And when you're not part of some clique or whatever, and you don't want to join in with certain people, they get offended by you rejecting them, I guess you could say, because I never wanted to hang out and party with a bunch of fucking drug dealers or whatever. It's just not something I want to do, because I have no interest in that. It's a life that gets you nowhere, in my opinion. Okay, those kinds of things mess you up, messes up relationships, your financial situation, your health, all goes to shit once you start doing meth and crap like that. I would imagine. I don't do that. I've never done that, but I can imagine that it wreaks havoc on your health in the long run, okay? I would see these people so fucking drugged out and so fucked up doing the fucking drug deals right in front of me so that I would say something or just to see if I would react right in front of my car, right in front of my fucking, right there in the driveway doing fucking drug deals, okay? So it was always like they were wanting me to react. They were wanting me to interfere. They were doing it to me, trying to get me to react. And so what I'm trying to explain is a form of reactive abuse. When you get angry at something because you have been harassed and stalked and antagonized for so fucking long, eventually you fucking lose it. You just have had enough. It's like being in flight or fight mode or something. And now, of course, because I've said things about black people, it makes it look like, oh, I hate every single black. No, I don't hate every single black person. I know I get really mad and say bad things about them, but no, I don't hate them all. I know there's some nice ones and good ones out there, for God's sakes, but I'm saying that for whatever reason, I tend to get targeted a lot by ones who are just bully types who want to play authority figure in my life and try to fucking tell me what to do. Excuse me, who the fuck are you? I don't work for the police. I'm not a fucking security guard, and I don't give a shit what people, it's none of my fucking business what people do. I don't want to get involved. Okay, don't put that kind of burden on me. As it is, at the gym, they seem to think that, it's almost like they seem to think that I'm some kind of a fucking security guard there. Okay, so I'm there every day. I'm wearing black mostly, and I guess I take myself rather seriously because I do take my exercise routine seriously, and I don't interact with people. And so I guess they think that I'm some kind of an authority figure or somebody who, is like, whatever. They seem to trust me with their shit all over the place because I'll go to the locker room and I notice that women leave their purses unattended or their backpacks and whatever just laying there. As soon as I walk in, I'm not going to steal their shit. I wouldn't do that. But I'm just saying people seem to think that I am there to watch over their stuff. They seem to think that about me, or that's how I feel. that's the vibe that I get from some of these people at the gym. And God knows I've been targeted for a long time by security guard type individuals. This is part of the gang stalking thing, is that it's done by people who work in the private security, fusion centers, police, whatever, military. And the reason they target people mostly is either, and I've talked about this ad nauseum, and I'll say it again, they will target people who are dissidents, politically speaking, people who are whistleblowers, people who are against the government, dissidents, i.e. political dissidents who don't agree or who are not in accordance with the agenda of the United States corporation, i.e. social communism, because that's what it is. That's what we live in, a social communist country, where basically you as an individual of the United States don't really have legal rights anymore. I mean, because it's basically a big corporation where it's all, your rights have been stripped away from you bit by bit by this global communist agenda, and the Constitution is pretty much null and void nowadays. I mean, most people don't really respect that document, and come to find out, well, not come to find out, that sounds really cliche, but the Constitution was written for the Shemitic people. Okay, if now this sounds kind of crazy, but I'm not making this stuff up. If you research the history of the United States, and if you research a book called The Curse of Canaan by a man named Eustace Mullins, who did years and years of research and has written several books, one of which is about the Federal Reserve. He's an historian, he's dead now, but the man was very knowledgeable about history, about world history, about wars, about the tax, the Federal Reserve System, about a lot of things of which people don't seem to take into account when it comes to the government and why things are the way they are and why things happen and how it came about. Well, whenever you start to realize this and educate yourself about it more and more, things start to make more sense. And the Constitution itself was actually written to protect the Shemites, or I guess they're called Shemitic peoples, is what they're called, according to the book of Canaan, Curse of Canaan. This is all biblical. It has to do with the Noah's Ark and how Ham, the curse of Ham, when that, if you look into the book of Genesis or the Noah's Ark story, parable, that has a lot. I mean, it's a story, it's a parable, whatever, in the Bible, but still, there's a lot to be said about these kinds of things, because in fact, every single war and all these things that happen do in fact have their roots in biblical religious connotation, or things that had to do with, fighting against the, and here's a theme again, the dark versus a light skin, or it's always that same kind of theme where the good versus a bad. The Canaanites, who were the evil devil worshippers, and the cannibals, according to history, who later became the Phoenicians, who are the modern day Phoenicians, or who were the Phoenicians after they basically changed their identity and became the Phoenicians after they were driven out of all kinds of most places because of their practices involving human sacrifices and things of which were very barbaric and evil, demonic. And so they were known throughout history as being an evil, demonic race of people, of which happened to have roots with the curse of Canaan, the curse of Ham, why that happened? Because apparently Noah's son had a daughter on the Noah's Ark. They were forbidden to have any kind of intercourse with anybody, and this is, you can look this stuff up in Bible literature on the internet or whatever, but he had intercourse with a woman of a Cushite woman, which means she was black. And so apparently therefore he was cursed because Noah had forbade him to do that, and so he did. And so being one of Noah's sons, it's called the curse of Ham, or the curse of Canaan, which goes back to Noah's Ark. And so that's why they say that nowadays all this stuff, the reason we have all these wars and all this chaos and whatnot worldwide has to do with the curse of Canaan, and the fact that whatever, I don't know. I'm not saying all this stuff is necessarily valid, but a lot of it seems to be. Because it does seem that according to some genetic makeup of certain individuals, some of them are more rebellious and warlike than others. And so, yeah, it's just like that kind of fable, or that theme of the good versus a bad, the light versus a dark type, whatever. So anyway, apparently the Constitution was written for the people of Shem, as opposed to the Canaanites, who have in fact tried to destroy the Constitution, of which is what's going on nowadays with the social communist agenda, where they don't want people, for whatever reason, seems that a lot of people of European ancestry whose forefathers came to this country, of course the Native Americans were already here, and I know that was a lot of, savage stuff happened to them, but nonetheless, apparently the Constitution was originally created to protect the Shemites, the Shemitic peoples. You can look all this stuff up if you don't want to, if you don't, whatever. But anyway, so I think a lot about these things, and I find it fascinating, and I'm not saying that I agree with everything that I read or hear about, obviously, but a lot of it does, to me, make sense as to why there's so much animosity and hatred towards, it's like the blacks were slaves, obviously, and they were slaves because of the Europeans, who mostly, had plantations, but not all slaves were mistreated and treated horribly by the Caucasian Europeans. A lot of them were actually treated rather well and were educated, and they weren't completely miserable people, but some of them, yeah, it's like they seem to be cursed, like the curse of Canaan. They seem to have, like, the black race seems to have just had a lot of downfall and bad luck throughout the ages, but you can correlate that all back to the curse of Ham or curse of Canaan if you want to sort of try to dive into that and find out why, or do your own research. But it just does, to me, make more sense when I learn more about this, because you always wonder, why are some people, why are things the way they are, and why did that stuff happen? And well, it just did. And I'm not, who am I to, I'm just saying that, like, people like me, for example, living in a community that's mostly, or a neighborhood here in San Antonio, which is predominantly, Hispanic or African American, mostly, at least in the area that I used to live in. I would get a lot of people pointing fingers at me, asking, and they would even ask me and approach me if I would go out for a walk. What are you doing here? Or they would honk their horns and try to get my attention very aggressively. And this would happen to me a lot, and I got rather angered and traumatized by that, because it was a common occurrence, and it would make me so mad after going to the gym or going for a walk in the neighborhood or walking to the HEB down the street. I would just be so fucking angry because I'd either get chased by a dog running around, some fucking dog that was running loose in the neighborhood, or people harassing me on their bicycles or on foot or in their vehicles trying to, ask, just horrible things. And it still traumatizes me. It still upsets me. And I get triggered by these things because I'm not used to that. It's not something that happened to me prior to having lived in San Antonio. I didn't have these kinds of problems when I lived in Houston. I didn't have a problem going out for a walk in the neighborhood without feeling threatened by a dog attacking me or somebody trying to harass me in their vehicle, making cat calls or whatever. I didn't have those problems because I wasn't in that kind of neighborhood. And then I come over here and all this horrible stuff happens to me throughout the time I've lived here. And I still get angered by it because I feel like it's a lot of time wasted that I could have been doing something else or I should have been doing something else. And it's always, well, what should have, could have, right? But I look back and I think, what did I do that was so bad for this to happen to me? And I try to replay in my mind my history. And I'm like, well, yes, I've made mistakes. I've done some things that I'm not proud of, but I don't feel like I have, it's not anything that's that big of a deal that would warrant such years of harassment and stalking by any means. So I still ask myself, why is this exactly happening? And so the only conclusions I can come up with are the fact that, okay, yes, I am a targeted person. I've been a whistleblower. I have been a dissident. I have had government jobs where I've worked for the government. I have had sensitive jobs with basically security clearance type jobs where, those kinds of jobs that are highly sensitive when you're dealing with very personal information of individuals, things like that. And so I look at all my jobs throughout my life and I realize, and then all the things that I got involved with these schooling and education things that were kind of related to things of which were not really my personality at all, because I used to be someone who was very artistic. I used to be much more artistic and more free thinking and happy, I guess. But now I'm a very serious, hardened person. I don't laugh anymore. I don't have much of a sense of humor. And I'm not trying to get upset, but I'm sorry. I have been so traumatized throughout especially in the past year, of all the things that have happened in my life, that I just, it's like kind of shocking that this is like, why? And it's horrible because it's like, I'm not trying to play victim. I'm a very strong person, but I feel like I just can't, everything I do, I either try too hard or it's never good enough. And people don't give me the proper I don't get the credit that I feel that I deserve. And it's always been like this. I'm always the one who's overworked, and I'm always the one who's underpaid. It's always been like that throughout my life. The overworked, unpaid helper type person. And it's not, I've always tried really hard, and I think maybe I fucking try too hard. Maybe I should just quit. But I'm not a quitter. But it's just the kind of society that we live in, because people are always competing. People are always just how it is. And I try to be nice to people. I try to be cordial. I try to be understanding with people and sympathetic. But I think they see that as a weakness where they can take advantage of that and use it as like a doormat to just like step on. And then they project their anger onto me or their problems. It's like I can feel a lot of their anger and their problems, and I absorb it to the point that it's just too much for me. And it's just overbearing and overwhelming because I can't do that. I physically, emotionally can't do that anymore. I cannot. It's hard enough for me to take care of myself. I have major chronic depression and severe PTSD and anxiety and paranoia. And it's very, very difficult for me. I'm very socially awkward. I'm very shy. I don't like to talk to people. And it comes off as being very arrogant or, whatever they think I am. I don't know. But I just am that way. I just kind of like to stay to myself. And I don't like being watched either. I don't like being the center of attention. I make these videos just to document things for my own sanity or therapy. But not because I'm trying to get attention, that kind of attention, because I don't want that kind of attention. I just have to validate. I feel like I have to validate myself because nobody else is going to do it. And some of these things that happen to me on a daily basis are so far-fetched and unusual that I kind of have to do this, because if I didn't, I'd probably be dead, or I might just, I don't know what I would do. But it's just like one day after the next, it's just really weird. And I just try to not react. I try to just ignore some of this chaos going on around me, because I don't want to act out in a way that gets me in trouble or gets me locked up, or, whatever, thrown in a mental hospital or in prison or something, or in jail, because I say something that I don't mean to say, or that, out of self-defense, because they provoke me to the point that they are trying to get me to react in a way of which is going to get me thrown in a mental hospital or arrested. And that, that's what people will do if you're acting in a weird way in public, and people feel threatened by you, especially at a gym, for example. Then sure, they're going to call somebody. They're going to, of course. And so I have to be extremely prudent about how I behave, because of the fucking scrutiny that I'm under on a daily basis. It's like a lot of scrutiny by people. And so I don't trust anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just can't, for my own protection, because I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want to make myself have a fucking heart attack or panic attack because of all the stress that it causes me. And I just kind of that's how I am. That's what I live like now. So I just try to just focus on what I'm doing and listen to my music and go about my own thing. And for the most part, people don't mess with me, but some people, for whatever reason, they like to try to trigger me or get me to react to their stuff. And or they'll compliment me, and it's awkward because you don't know really what to say. And it's like that, it can just get kind of strange sometimes, because people, I don't know. I don't like, when it comes to my body, when it comes to exercise and things like this, these are very personal things. My body is sacred. I don't want anybody touching me. I don't like anybody looking at me. I'm very modest, and that's how I am. Even in my own house, in the privacy of this home, I'm very modest. I don't like to expose myself. I'm very paranoid about maybe being under surveillance and thinking that I'm under some kind of surveillance with hidden cameras in this home, which I suspect is going on. So I'm very weird about that. And, I just am that way. But so back to some other stuff that happened today, with this person, this narcissist, and he's a psychopath. I have determined now, after really coming to terms with it and really realizing and looking back in retrospect about that situation I was involved with that man, he by far is a psychopath, a malignant narcissist, I should say. That is to say, somebody, because the difference between just a regular narcissistic person, which it is a mental disorder, by the way, is that a narcissist is just very arrogant and has a lot of pride, and they're very boast about themselves, and they think that they're better than everybody else, and they look at people as being below them. That's typically, or they're mostly all about image, right? About image and projecting an image to people. That's your typical, that's a typical definition of what a narcissist is. Now, a malignant or covert narcissist, on the other hand, somebody who's aware of what they're doing, is a completely different alien altogether. I mean, that they are the ones who are basically categorized as being sociopaths or psychopaths. In what that means in that category of covert narcissism or malignant narcissism, it means that they are completely cognizant of what they are doing to the individual, as far as all the gaslighting that they inflict, all the emotional trauma, often sexual abuse. They'll do things like withhold affection. If you're intimate with them or in an intimate relationship, they will withhold sex from you, or they'll withhold any kind of affection to make you feel inadequate, or it's always one-sided with them. It's always about them, right? That's an example of what they'll do when you're in a romantic entanglement with them. They want to punish you. They try to punish you. They're always body shaming you. They'll make sly comments about your weight, about anything that they can do to try to get under your skin to make you feel bad about yourself or your image or your appearance or whatever. They love to tease you about these things to make you feel, to second guess yourself. And that's called gaslighting. And that's what the difference between a malignant narcissist and a regular narcissist is. The malignant ones gaslight, and they're aware of the harm, the emotional, psychological trauma that they're causing their victim, because they have an agenda. They know what they're doing. Don't think that they don't, because they do know what they're doing, and they know that it affects their target or their victim. They know good and well that they're causing you emotional and psychological, often physical harm as well. If you're not careful, it can lead to much worse things. There's situations where women get involved with these individuals to the point where that person, that man, is a total. They might have a comorbidity of alcoholism or drug use, and on top of their being controlling and covert narcissists. So if they don't get their way with you, if you tell them no. For example, if they are in the mood to do something that you don't want to do, or if you reject them in some kind of a way, they will act out often violently, or they can do physical harm, which can land you in the hospital, can land you in the emergency room. It can escalate into a fight, physical fight or things of this nature, because they're so used to being in control, and it's about control and power over the individual of these people. They have to be in control and have authority over people, and that's that's called malignant narcissism. There's a big difference between just a narcissist, which everybody has a bit of narcissism. It's a normal thing to have a little bit of arrogance and pride in yourself. That's a healthy thing. But a malignant narcissist is a completely different category altogether, like I'm saying. So today, as I'm sitting here earlier this afternoon, I had enough of this abuse, this psychological, manipulative abuse throughout the past year and a half with this person, this man, this narcissist, covert narcissist, malignant narcissist, psychopath. And I just was like, he thinks that everything's on his terms. He's got to be in control, and it's like, he can't take no for an answer. Even though I blocked him and I don't want to have anything to do with him, he keeps showing up, calling, coming to the door, knocking on the window and whatnot. And today he was knocking on my window